Oh, here's a fun one, okay? Some fans cast Mick Riva as Harry Styles. How do you feel about that? We had Welcome to the channel's first ever book club review. So, I have a book club. It's monthly. It's on Fable. If you'd like to join, check the link in my description. It's free. But this month, we read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And by read past tense, I mean I have yet to read it, but this is the intro, so we're talking like that. What I'm going to do in this video is vlog myself reading it, and then after I do that, I want to do an analysis and in-depth overview slash review. Hello, future Bella, just cutting in really quick because I initially thought this video was going to be a 2 segment video, but it's actually more like 4 segments because we have the reading vlog, then we have my review, then we discuss a fun little poll that I made that everybody in the book club got to participate in, and finally I announce the next month's read. So stay tuned for all of that. If you'd like to cut around, then check the description because I'll have timestamps for each section. Okay, back to past me. I will tell you, I have read the first 3 chapters, and at this point, they have pretty much just situated the book. Like, I know the premise now, I know what's going on. Immediately, my thoughts are the characters, very well written. I really like her writing style. Good stuff so far. That's all I have to say, and I'll keep you updated.
It is currently 5 a.m. I have been awake since 4. Don't know why I can't sleep lately. Part of the reason why I can't sleep tonight is because I woke up and I went to the bathroom and I was just laying here trying to go back to sleep and I was like, how could Cece have just left her? Like, yes, it was implied. I need to know what happens though, so that's what I'm gonna do right now. The lavalier mic is making this difficult, but I'm like halfway through. So far though, I love the way that Taylor Jenkins Reid writes her characters, and as I was reading this, I was like, this feels so much like Daisy Jones and the Six, and I realized that's a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. So I've actually read Carrie Sato is Back and Daisy Jones and the Six, which I love those books. My pillowcase is coming off. That's fine. But yeah, pending finishing this book, I think that Taylor Jenkins Reid might be one of my favorite authors of all time. Like, her books are literally so good. I can't. But I love how human her characters are. Like, sometimes they make selfish choices, like, they're not perfectly morally whatever. It's just nice. And I look forward to talking about it more. But so far, I I would say that I'm hooked, but I'm not like dying to pick it up constantly. Like right now, I really want to know what happens, but I also don't feel I'm not like addicted to this book in the way that I've been addicted to other books. So we'll see if that changes as I like grow more attached to the characters and the story. But so far, I don't think it's gonna be a 5-star book, but definitely like up there. So we'll see. I'm gonna read and then I have to go to work today. So at 7, I'm gonna start getting ready for my day and I'm hoping that I can start sleeping better soon.
So I went to work today and I came back home. I was freezing and I took a nice hot shower, got my comfy sweater on, and then I sat down and I read this with my dinner. And this book is just so good. Like the way that it's taken me by surprise. I'm just really excited to talk about it more in depth after I finish it. But I am sitting at chapter 44 and it's like it's so wonderful, but I know that it's not going to last because Harry is her 5th husband and she has 7 as we know. And so I just know that this can't last and it's making me really sad. And of course, we know from the beginning of the book that her daughter dies, and I think it said something about Harry also getting cancer. And I'm like, where does Celia go? Ah, that's how I'm feeling about this. But so good. I have shed a couple tears over this book already, and I'm not even done. I'll probably read some more tonight, but I think I'll wait and check back in tomorrow after I've made some more progress. I honestly might try to finish it out before I come back to you. We will see. But of course, you will be hearing from me again because we have a lot to talk about. Welcome to part 2 of this video, and if you didn't have much spoiled in the first half, this is where the spoilers are really going to start coming into play. because I need to be able to talk about this freely, okay? I am really excited. I have hot cocoa and it is currently just snowing like crazy outside, and I'm really excited about it. I'll show you some footage. I've been working from home all day because the roads were bad, and just like staring out my window and being ready to go out. And so I did. I went out for a little bit and it was fun. But now we have business to cover, okay? So, first things first, I want to discuss my opinions of the book, and then I'm actually going to add one more part, a part three. I'm learning as I go. We're going to have part three for this video and for the rest of the videos, where I will discuss a little poll that I made. I made a Google form with a bunch of little questions, and I sent it out to people in the book club, and some people filled it out. So, we'll discuss the results, and I think that it'll be fun. But that's going to come after my actual discussion because I want my impression to be free of what other people thought, I guess. Um, let's get into it. So, let's just kick it off with a little summary so that you know what goes on in this book. Allow me to just have this on hand because that'll be useful. I'll put it right here. That's kind of cinematic, huh? So, Monique is a reporter and she works at this journal place, this like outlet, I don't know, a news place. Anyway, she works there. And it's like a pretty prestigious place, but she hasn't really been writing anything meaningful. She's still in the process of climbing up the ranks, and she's on a lowish rank. Her boss calls her in, and her boss is like, this really famous woman, Evelyn Hugo, wants to do a piece with us, and she wants you to write it. And that is her only rule. And so Monique is like, what the heck? I don't know why she would choose me, but okay. And then she goes out and she meets Evelyn Hugo, and Evelyn Hugo immediately is like, I don't want you to write an article. I want you to write my biography. Is that the right word? I always get biography mixed up with bibliography. A biography tells the story of a person's life, while a bibliography lists the. Okay, I'm dumb. Okay, this is not an issue for me to solve right now, but Evelyn Hugo is like, Monique, I want you to write my life story and publish it when I die. At first, Monique isn't quite sure, but she agrees to do it because, like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. She's pretty much guaranteed to make millions off of this. So she agrees. And then we get into the meat of this story, which is Evelyn Hugo recounting her life and her seven husbands and, like, all of the things that went with each era of husband. This book is so beautiful. I'm very excited to talk about it. But as Monique gets to know Evelyn and gets to know her story, things are kind of revealed. There are some twists. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to give too crazy with my synopsis. But we go on for a while. Evelyn's just recounting her story, and Monique is kind of getting to know her. There's this little side plot of Monique like becoming a girl boss because she's so inspired by Evelyn Hugo. And like that's great, but I found it kind of cringe just the way that it was executed. Like, I'm going to do what Evelyn Hugo would do. Like, okay, I guess, whatever. It just, bells were ringing, and I just wasn't sure about it. But that was a very small portion of the story. Like I said, the meat of the story was Evelyn Hugo recounting her life. That's going on, that's going on. We're learning more and more. And this whole time, Evelyn is like, oh, Monique, don't start to admire me now because you'll hate me soon enough. And she's like, she's foreshadowing this horrible thing that she's done. And so we finally hear about the horrible thing that she's done. And Monique is like, I think that it's excusable, blah, blah, blah. And then Evelyn is like, actually, the horrible thing that I did was to your father. And Monique is then really angry. Long story short, the book is written. Evelyn kills herself, and Monique kind of forgives her. So there's that. Monique also makes the choice to leave her husband because she kind of learns what a failed marriage is. That's kind of something that is explored in this story. There's that. That's what happens in this book. Now for my opinions. Let's see. I have a lot of notes, but they're like not very organized, so we'll see how I cover them. Okay, the writing style. I liked the writing style. I saw a lot of people on the internet that were like, this writing is horrible, particularly in Monique's sections. And I kind of get where they're coming from, but when I was reading this and I was immersed in the story, it felt tasteful. Like, it felt like a very fitting way to phrase things for this story. And I think even if the writing wasn't incredibly flowery all the time, there were still really meaningful lines. Like, This is my favorite quote of the entire book. Let me pull it up. I don't have it tabbed in there. I was like, I don't want to write in the book, but I'm just writing in the book next time because I hate having to scroll through here. Oh my god, yeah, this is such a good quote. Okay. People think that intimacy is about sex, but intimacy is about truth. When you realize you can tell someone your truth, when you can show yourself to them, when you stand in front of them bare and their response is, "You're safe with me," that's intimacy. And I loved that. That's just so beautiful. It was very well said. And like, were they saying a bunch of really fancy words and being really eloquent? No. They were saying it how it is, and it was still just really impactful to me, at least. And that's just one quotable line. Like, I found myself reading this and just having to like put the book down and be like, that was so beautiful, like so many times. It's a really quotable book. I really liked the way that this book portrayed old Hollywood, and I think that it kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things that went on back then. Like, I never really thought about like fake marriages being a thing and really just contorting your entire life to appeal to the public because your entire life is how you appear to the public. It was crazy to see how brutal that was for men and women, but specifically women, because it seems like men who are in it to take advantage of people are more prominent in industries like that where a lot of your success is based off of your physical appearance. Like, obviously, there were a lot of issues with it. So, I appreciated that lens. And it was kind of interesting to think about how that compares to Hollywood today. Like, I know that probably a lot of these things still happen. Like, I'm sure that marriages are still planned to amass interest, you know? And we hear about child stars being taken advantage of all the time. And that's what Evelyn was in the beginning, was a child star. And so I appreciate how this brings awareness to how harmful these industries can be, like film and music specifically. Another thing that I really, really loved about this book is the way that it is a portrayal of all of the different types of love that exist. Because a lot of times when people think of marriage, they think of a physically romantic relationship, and like obviously someone that you also have a really deep connection with, but they don't think of, oh, your best friend that you're mostly platonic with, but you just get on really well. It was just nice to see how successful relationships can be made up of so many different dynamics. So I appreciated that. I think that Evelyn and Harry's relationship honestly was probably the purest, most special relationship in this entire story. Like, it was just so beautiful, and I loved, ugh, I just loved what they did together. It was so beautiful. And I'm not hating on Cece. Like, I think that they were so sweet and wonderful together, but I have to admit, Cece could be callous at times. And, you know, Evelyn also did things that were harsh, but I think that they were necessary. Like, I think she was being reasonable and realistic because she had the background knowledge to understand what she needed to do, where Cece was more sheltered and, like, she knew, but she didn't get it the way that Evelyn got it because Evelyn had been down in Hell's Kitchen, but Cece had not. But yeah, as I was saying, Cece could be really callous. There was a specific line in here. I just could not even fathom saying something like this to someone who I claim to love so dearly. This is what she said. This was after Cece had won, I don't know if it was her second or third Oscar, but she won an Oscar. And then Evelyn was at home and couldn't be there with her. And so they were on the phone after the awarding ceremony. And they were getting along really great. Evelyn was congratulating her. And then Cece was like, I wish you were here. And Evelyn was like, I'm sorry, you know why I can't be. And Cece said this. Exactly the same Evelyn I've been dealing with for years. Nothing's changed. You're afraid of who you are, and you still don't have an Oscar. You are what you've always been, a nice pair of tits. Like, how objectifying. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that to someone that I love, let alone another woman. I don't know, man. It just shows that, like, the more you know a person, the more ability you have to really hurt them if that is your desire. And she did immediately apologize, but, like, the fact that she even allowed that to escape her lips. Anyway, I guess I'll touch on their relationship now. I think that they were very sweet. I was gunning for them. I wanted them together the whole time. I think like 98% of the time they were just beautiful, like loved them together. And I think it was so tragic the way that they allowed themselves to lose so many years together. And I understand that they came to terms with that in the end, but it was just, it's a shame. And I think that it really highlights how, like, you really have nothing to lose. Like, if you're really missing someone and you've lost them, but you really want them back, Like, reach out. Don't just assume that they don't want to talk to you unless they explicitly say, do not contact me. I think it's worth a shot. Like, would you rather lose that time with a person and then get them back later or have them back sooner? And sometimes things do take time. It's just, I really think that there are times to be bold in life. And these scenarios where they went years without speaking, like those were times where they needed to be bold with each other. Here's a critique that I have been hearing on the internet as I've been like researching and stuff. A lot of people don't like Evelyn's character. Like they think she's a bad person. I do not appreciate that because yes, is definitely morally gray. She's a great example of a character that does not adhere to like the moral standard. She does her own thing, and I think that that was an incredible choice because it makes her such a realistic character. Like she reads like a real person. She's selfish. She has her own goals. Sometimes they override the goals of the people that she loves. She's flawed. She's like a real person, and she was so well done. And this is where I think that Monique falls very flat. I appreciate what was attempted with her character, and I was okay with her side of the story. Like, it was fine. I just didn't care about it nearly as much as I cared about Evelyn's story. I think that the plot reveal with Monique was really surprising. I didn't see it coming at all. But, like, that's really all that her character had to offer the story was that connection, some shock value. Some other people called the book predictable, and I did not see that at all. Like, not at all. And that might be because I went into the book completely blind. Like, I just heard a bunch of people saying, the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is really good. You should read it. It's my favorite book of all time. And I was like, okay, I'll read it. And I actually put off reading this book for probably a year or so because I looked at the cover and I'm going to be honest, I just don't like that cover. Like, it gives off a different vibe than this book actually has. When I looked at that cover and I read the title, I thought it was about a billionaire woman that murdered her seven husbands and took their life insurance money and was living off of that. And it was like an exploration of how she did that, which would probably be a fairly interesting story to read, but it's just, I don't know. I wasn't in the mood for that. And I thought that's what this was. And then come to find out, it is the most beautiful bi slash lesbian love story. So cute. And I loved going into that blind too because oh my god, like when I realized, I was like, are they? I was just reading and wondering, and then it was. And that's another thing that's really great about this story. I feel like the progression of their relationship was really natural. It didn't feel forced at all. Like, it was really cute. So, I love that. I will say that if I had been reading this novel with a harsher lens, I might have been able to predict more. Like, why is there such a heavy focus on her father if he's not going to get tied back in? It's kind of like Pavlov's gun. You don't mention the gun and then mention it again and again and not have it be instrumental in the plot of the story. But it's just, I started reading this and I was enjoying it so thoroughly that I didn't want to look at it that way. And for me, there's definitely a choice in that. If I look at a book and one thing triggers me, I'll just kind of ignore it and move on, but it's in the back of my mind. And if things keep adding up that I don't like, I start reading it with just distaste, and it definitely affects the way that I rate the book in the end. If I'm liking a book, I try to avoid letting myself do that because it really can dampen my experience. And I avoided doing that with this book. And it was so beautiful. I cried so many times when they buried Cece and Evelyn went and cried on Harry's grave. I'm like literally, I'm tearing up thinking about it. There was just so much about this that was like masterfully designed. But with all of that, I rated this book 4.5 stars. I took away a half a star because Monique's character really didn't do it for me. And I think that that plot line in the story was very weak, but it was such a tiny little portion that it definitely didn't take away an entire star. So 4.5 stars for The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And now, oh, that reminds me, I forgot to ask people what they rated it. Well, I can do that next time. Now let's move on to the poll. So I made a Google form and I asked a series of questions and then I posted it on Fable to the book club and I also posted it to just Fable at large. I'm really excited to see the responses. I have not allowed myself to look at them even though I was like getting really excited to see that people were actually participating. So the first one, Monique's character, 50% thought that she felt so real. 16.7% thought that she was so boring and flat, and 33.3% thought that she was mediocre. And I would have to say that's where I fall. I've already kind of talked about this. You know how I feel. Next, do you believe Evelyn was justified in using people to achieve her goals? 57.1% said sometimes, and 42.9% said yes. And I think that that's really interesting. I was honestly expecting at least somebody to say no, but this is a really likable book, and Evelyn is a really likable character. So I imagine a little bit of bias was introduced there just because of how much everybody loves her. She's awesome. But yeah, she is really complex. So I thought that this would be a good question. It really just depends on your morals. Like, what is morally correct to you? I would say that sometimes she was justified, leaning towards she was justified. I feel like she was existing in an industry that was built to take advantage of her. So, like, yeah, go girl, take advantage of it. Take advantage of the people who are participating in that. That's kind of how I feel. Next, which husband was your favorite? There is a correct answer. Yes, it was Harry. Come on. 100% of people said it was Harry Cameron. And that, yeah, yeah. And then next I asked, what was your favorite quote from the book? And I only had 3 responses for this, which is totally fine because, like, do you just remember quotes off the dome? But 2 people actually put that same quote that I mentioned earlier about intimacy, which I love. I think that's a beautiful quote, and I think it's so fair that it is so widely appreciated. And then the third one is never let anyone make you feel ordinary. And you know what? That is so real. Yes, I love that too. This book has so many good quotes, though. Oh, read it. If you haven't, read it. It is just so good. Next, do you think Evelyn's decisions were driven more by love or survival? 42.9% said both. Her love and survival instincts were equally important in her choices. And 57.1% said survival. She did what she had to do to survive in a cutthroat industry. You know, I think that both is probably the more fair answer, personally, for me, because initially she was operating on survival alone, but then toward the end of the story she started making decisions that were more in the interest of her and Celia's relationship, and I think that that shows, you know, a little bit of agency for her love. So I would say both, leaning towards survival. It was survival for a great part of the story. Oh, here's a fun one. Okay, some fans cast Mick Riva as Harry Styles. How do you feel about that? We had 50%, I kind of see it, 16.7%, OMG, yes. 16.7%, I guess, and 16.7%, absolutely not, which is really interesting to me. I think I land in the category of I kind of see it because, like, I love Harry Styles and I don't know, he wears the fits with the guitar. Like, I can kind of see that. But I feel like Mick Riva had this, like, oh, rough, manly vibe that I don't think Harry Styles really has. I don't know. When I was reading Mick Riva, I was like, this man, he grew up on a farm. And Harry Styles does not give that vibe. I just, it's not quite there for me. I imagined Mick a little beefier than Harry. Next question, controversial, okay? Were Evelyn and Cece toxic? Now, 71.4% of people said sometimes, 14.3% said yes, and the other 14.3% said no. I think that this is really interesting because I think a lot of people love Cece and Evelyn's relationship, and it kind of blinds them to the negative parts of that relationship. Like, can a relationship be partially toxic, or if it has toxic parts, does that just make it toxic? Because if things are great 90% of the time, but then 10% it's toxic, I don't know. Is that still a healthy relationship? I guess it would depend on what exactly was happening. But it's just an interesting assessment of what qualifies as unhealthy. I would say that I lean toward sometimes, even though that might seem contradictory to what I just said. But it's just so hard to tell. And this story also covered so much of their life. Like, it was over such a long span of time that can you really call it one thing when it has been so many things during different periods? Like, their relationship changed through the story. Next question. What would you want to see in a sequel to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo? 14.3% of people would like to see Evelyn's life after the final interview. It would be emotionally charged, I'm sure. You could do some cool, like, flashback stuff. It'd be kind of fun, but we already know most of her story, so I don't know how effective that could be or how long it would really be. 28.6% said they would like to see the impact of Evelyn's legacy on Hollywood. That would be interesting. Sounds kind of boring, but also kind of interesting. And then 57.1% said they would like to see a deeper look into Celia's life, which I guess that's fair. And nobody wanted a prequel about Evelyn's early years. And if I'm being honest, oh, what do I think? Oh, nobody chose Monique's next big story either, and that's because her character sucks. Whether people want to recognize that or not is none of my business, but I think that this is revealing. I think if I had to choose one, it would be either a deeper look into Celia's life or a prequel about Evelyn's early years. No, no, no. Actually, 100% a deeper look into Celia's life because I think that would be really interesting, seeing her like come to terms with her sexuality and realize what she was and navigating Hollywood as that. Because she had a different experience than Evelyn. Evelyn could fall for guys, and Cece could not. So it would be interesting. Which characters would you want to spend a day with? 42.9% said Harry Cameron. That's where I'm at. I love that man, okay? Um, 42.9% again said Celia St. James. Okay, you can have that opinion. And 14.3% said Evelyn Hugo, which is interesting. Harry was so lovable, though, and as admirable and like interesting as Evelyn was as a character, was she a like warm, fuzzy person you wanted to get up close to? Not really. I think she would be cool to talk to, but would I want to trust her with my deepest, darkest secrets? Probably not. Harry Cameron, though, I would trust him with anything. He was so God, it was so sad when he died. The second to last question. Do you think that sexual identity was covered well in this story? 85.7% said yes, it was covered well, but 14.3% said sort of. And I find this interesting because, as someone who, like, I'm just straight, I don't have the experience of someone who has an alternate sexual identity to straightness. And to me, when I read this, I thought it felt pretty realistic. Sometimes I thought maybe it was a little bit over the top with how adamant Evelyn was about making it very clear that she was bi and not a lesbian. But like that's fair enough because she was making valid points. It's just the way that she was like beating a dead horse in the end because it came up so many times. I was like, we get it, girl. I kind of wish I had put a box here to ask why, like explain your answer, because this could have been a really useful way for me to gain insight into someone else's perspective. Like maybe they are someone who identifies this way and I'm missing out here and I regret that, but I appreciate the input and next time I'll be a little more thoughtful. Like I said, learning as we go. Oh, there are actually two more. So, our next question was a written answer and I wasn't expecting to get as many responses, but a lot of people did respond. It says Evelyn changes her name when she enters Hollywood. How does this change reflect the tension between who she is and the identity she feels forced to present in order to succeed in an industry that values a more mainstream appearance? And mainstream, okay? So I'm not going to read all of these because there are a lot and it would take a long time, but I do want to discuss one of them and I'll just put them all on the screen so you can read through if you're interested. But I want to talk about the bottom. So this person said, I don't think the biggest fracture from her culture came from her changing her name. Of course, Hugo is more Hollywood coded, but Celia also changes her last name, even if she comes from wealth and is white. By changing her name, she also distances herself from an abusive dad. The change of appearance is for me the biggest fracture she makes from her past. And I think that that's really well said. I will say, I think that Evelyn changing her name was a little more significant than Celia changing her name because when Celia changed her name, she was just like finding something that sounded nicer. But when Evelyn was changing her name, she was erasing a name that sounds like Cuban, you know? I think that people would read Evelyn Herrera and they would say, oh, this isn't Marilyn Monroe, you know? Like she changed her hair, the way that she spoke, and she changed her name. I would definitely agree that changing her appearance was definitely a bigger fracture. I think that you're right. And I think that also, like, refraining from speaking a language that she's grown up speaking because of everything that goes along with that, it's just sad. And that was also big. So she gave up who she was in so many ways. And it was very sad to see. And it is sad that this has happened in the industry and continues to happen. Very important. I'm glad that we got to discuss it. So, yeah, thank you for everybody who wrote an answer there. And then, any final thoughts? I will also put these up on the screen. I'm not going to read through all of them, but feel free to check them out if you'd like to. And again, thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you if you were just in the book club and didn't even like do any of the interactive things. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you reading and appreciating literature. And you know what? I lied. There's actually a fourth section to this video. Next time, I'm going to have this organized and it's going to be beautiful. Okay. So, section 4, December's read. I posted a poll and you all voted in the club. And I can't remember exactly what I put up right now, but I'll add a screenshot so you can see. These were the poll options. And as you can see, The Bear and the Nightingale won. I am so excited because I was specifically choosing books that were like winter coded, you know, like they involve harsh, snowy landscapes and maybe some fairy tale like magic. And that is exactly what this book is based on what I've read. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that. I've been in the mood to read something like this. I recently read A Study in Drowning, and I feel like it had the whimsy, magical vibes that I think are in this book. But I think this book is going to do it better. So I'm looking forward to it. And if you would like to participate, the link to the Fable Book Club is in the description. And you can also just watch these videos here because I'll talk about the books here and you'll see the participation. So yeah, that's everything. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited about this. It's the first month. It's been a learning experience and it's just so fun. And I'm excited to fine tune it and make it good. Yee. Yeah, with that being said, that is everything that I have for you for this first ever monthly book club video. If you'd like to find me somewhere else on the internet, I do have Instagram and Fable. Like I said, that will be in the description. And if you're still here, I did forget to ask people what their rating was for this book. So I didn't actually get the average rating. So maybe comment your rating of the book because I'm curious. What did you think? And if you have any arguments, like based on what I said, feel free. I would love to hear your opinion. I will always listen and take into account what you have to say. I'll consider it, and if it's well reasoned, maybe I'll change my opinion. But yeah, I'm gonna head out. My hot chocolate is probably cold. No, it's still warm. All right, bye.